Well, first and foremost, I didn't know that a person's identity, a person's individual identity, is a competition. But since we're tallying the score, occasionally I'm asked, how is it possible that you are a white European Serbian Rastafarian? The answer is quite simple. Rastafarianism is a religion. It is actually based upon a person's acceptance of Emperor Haile Selassie I of Ethiopia's divinity and infallibility. It has nothing to do with a person's nationality, ethnicity, skin color, or any other superficial quality. Many historical common Rastafarians will tell me, you are a culture vulture. You are a closet racist. You are not of Rastafari. You cannot be a Rastafarian. But the fact of the matter is that it is a religion, and it is not based upon anything superficial. And if we're going to say that cultural appropriation and culture vultures exist, are we then saying that Emperor Haile Selassie I is also a culture vulture because he wore a British military uniform? Is he culturally appropriating the British? Some may argue that I am now participating in whataboutism. Whataboutism is just another term for a comparison. Haile Selassie made comparisons all the time during his speeches to the UN and trying to get his point across in interviews. These are well-documented facts. This is how we know it's appropriate to use comparisons. You can label anybody anything you want, as long as it's in accordance with Emperor Haile Selassie's dispositions and principles. Then God has approved it. Discussion is over at that point. The irony here is that I don't only have Rastafarians telling me that I can never be a Rasta, I also have Serbian people telling me that I am not Serbian. So which is it? Am I not a Rastafarian or am I not Serbian? Who am I? I'm actually your worst nightmare, because if you're one of my critics, I'm more Rastafarian than you'll ever be, and I'm actually more Serbian than you'll ever be. And the reason for this is because I actually follow Emperor Haile Selassie I and his laws and his commandments and his principles and his teachings. I don't make up my own customs, culture, and religion around the idea that Haile Selassie is divine. I actually follow Haile Selassie as instructed to do so by Primus St. Croix, his only begotten son, Primus St. Croix, which is why I am a member of the Order of Primus St. Croix. You know, recently one of these Rastafarians, one of these common Rastafarians posed a question and said, who died and made you guys the ministers, chief justices, and bishops? It's a rhetorical question, but the answer is quite simple, and it's very ironic. Emperor Haile Selassie I is who died in 1975 and sent us on earth to help establish his kingdom, which is why he has entrusted all of this information and this church to us. He is the one who made us the ministers, justices, and bishops. He is the one who gives us the titles that we have in our church. Now, I don't see people and members in the Order of Primus St. Croix arguing about who the president of Bobo Hill is. It doesn't concern us, so I don't understand why common Rastafarians are concerned with the hierarchy and structure of our church. You know, common historical Rastafarians don't even recognize the Messiah, Primus St. Croix. They don't even recognize our patriarch. They call him a fraud. They've literally physically abused him. You know, and does that mean we can't cooperate with other Rastafarian denominations? Does that mean that unity is off the table? No. Obviously, no. You know, Haile Selassie stressed these principles clearly. And we should follow them. But at the same time, there's no reason to not defend ourselves when we come under attack. You know, I find it very interesting that They pretend like we don't exist, but as soon as we publish something that is not in agreement with them, rubs them the wrong way, so to speak. Um, who died and put us into a position of authority is their question. Well, Emperor Haile Selassie I died in 1975, but these guys don't even believe that Emperor Haile Selassie died. See, this is the issue. They follow an archaic theological system and belief where God cannot die. God is immortal, physically, right? Because the devil has deceived the world. This is the Vatican and the Catholic interpretation of the Bible, which says that God is eternal and immortal in the flesh, right? So this is the issue. This is the problem. Rastafari, common historical Rastafarians of the three branches, Naya, Bingi, Bobo, Shanti, 12 tribes of Israel, they are obsolete. Because why? Because they do not follow Haile Selassie's disposition concerning mortality, his own mortality. They do not follow physics and biology that say a human being cannot live forever. They don't accept the fact that Haile Selassie, as God, created human beings to not live forever in the flesh. They don't agree with Haile Selassie's laws that say a person who has disappeared for more than 10 years can no longer be claimed to be living. It's actually against the law to claim that someone is alive after 10 years. Rastafarians don't want to follow that. They don't care that Haile Selassie criminalized cannabis in 1942 and 1964. They continue to smoke it because they believe that they have some special divine authority given to them through the scriptures, which again, they don't have the authority to interpret correctly. So these are just some minor issues. Rastafarianism is a very small minority when it comes to the religious community. The Order of Primus St. Croix, however, has usurped spiritual authority from every religious sect on earth, from every religious church and institution, specifically the Vatican. We've also usurped the title of God, the titles of God and Christ, and we've attributed them to Emperor Haile Selassie I of Ethiopia and his only begotten son, Primus St. Croix. So this has far-reaching implications much further than any Rastafarian organization could think of. If you look at the United States, for instance, even in their, I believe it's the Pledge of Allegiance, one nation under God. We proclaim God as Emperor Haile Selassie I, so one nation under Haile Selassie I. Do you realize that Haile Selassie had his own imperial Ethiopian abortion laws that said an abortion is only justified in the instance to save a woman's life during the pregnancy? So how can you then be pro-choice and claim Rastafari? How can you then smoke weed and in the name of Emperor Haile Selassie I? Who are the real Rastafarians here? Is it the guys blaspheming and using the Lord's name in vain because they don't follow his principles and teachings? Is it those guys? Because their skin is dark? Or is it the members of the Order of Primus St. Croix who adhere and follow Haile Selassie's words and adjust their beliefs accordingly when new information becomes available? Is it the Order of Primus St. Croix who researches Imperial Ethiopia, who is creating a new doctrine and liturgy in accordance with Emperor Haile Selassie's commandments and establishing his government and ministries on earth? Or is it the historical Rastafarians who sing reggae music, even though Haile Selassie's favorite music was classical jazz? I don't. That's for the people to decide. We know the answer. Irony here is that Serbian people also tell me that I'm not Serbian. I don't respect my ancestors' traditions. I am not a part of the Eastern Orthodox Church. I do not follow Serbian culture as I've progressed. The problem here is that Serbian people, well, apart from not being known in the world, we're a very tiny country that used to be called Yugoslavia, and even before that, we were a monarchy. But Serbia, is our identity is based upon the belief that we are the forefathers. Whether this is true or not, there's a great informative documentary on YouTube called "The Chronicles of the Serbs." It's a very nice introduction. As I've debated online and things like things like this online, I've come to realize that not many people know who the Serbian people are. My people were slaves for 500 years under the Ottoman Turks, for instance, and the word slave actually comes from uh, the race of my people who are Slavic. Slavic people. That is where the root word slave comes from. We are Serbs, and I've also heard that that's a play off the word servant. I don't know if that's true, but again, I mean, it's interesting to look at the history of these things. So we are a small country in Eastern Europe, off the coast of the Mediterranean, and we're a poor country, and it's interesting that people will tell me I'm not Serbian because I claim Rastafari. But in actuality, the belief is that Serbian people believe that they are the forefathers of all Slavic people, and they also believe that they are God-fearing Christian people. And if they are God-fearing Christian people, then they should be reading the Bible, but they don't. See, the issue is, in the year 1219, in the Common Era, a gentleman by the name of Rastko Nemanjić became the first archbishop of the the autocephalous Serbian Eastern Orthodox Church. And, he was recognized by the Patriarchate exiled in Constantinople at the time, because I believe Constantinople fell. But he was recognized as the first archbishop of the Serbian Orthodox people, and he, was literate, which helped him. He was one of the few people who were literate, and he published a constitution, the first written Serbian constitution in 1219, called the Zakon o Pravilo. And of course, this is a strict Cyrillic version, but the English version is about $7,000 last time I checked. It's usually given as a gift to diplomats who visit Serbia on state visits and things like that, but not very widely available to the public. But I can tell you that in this constitution, Saint Sava made an egregious error in his theology and laws that he gave to the Serbian people. Of course, he did guarantee and establish religious and political freedom for the Serbs, and we do thank him for that. We do definitely recognize him that. We recognize him for that. All of our churches and cathedrals are named after him. He is our patron saint, Saint Sava. He's essentially our right hand when it comes to life. I mean, that's who we venerate and respect, and and the mistake that he made, however, is that he endorsed Emperor Constantine's Roman Ecumenical Council of Nicaea's Nicene Creed in the Constitution. In the Constitution given to the Serbs in 1219, Common Era, Rastko Nemanjić, better known as Saint Sava, endorsed the Nicene Creed, which is idolatry, Trinitarianism, which is illogical. Okay, so the mistake that Saint Sava made was he told the Serbian Orthodox people to follow the Nicene Creed given by Emperor Constantine and created in the Roman Ecumenical Council of Nicaea, but by men who did not understand theology. So this has put the Serbian people on a course doomed for destruction. Right? This has put the fate of the Serbian people on a path headed for certain destruction. And just because Saint Sava is our patron saint does not mean that he cannot be scrutinized and criticized. Okay, as Serbian people, if we are claiming that we are God-fearing Christian people, we should be reading the Bible. But I find that many Serbian people do not read the Bible. They usually just leave that up to the priest, who then interprets it for them in church on every Sunday. Why are they practicing Sunday law? Again, Roman Ecumenical Councils and Roman law. They are following a Roman religion, essentially. You know, even though they claim that they're Orthodox and they separated from the Roman Catholic Church, they are still following the fundamentals of the Roman Catholic religion. This is the issue, right? Because in the Bible, there is a parable, Matthew chapter 5, it says, "And if your right hand causes you to stumble, cut it off and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to go into hell." So if we are comparing Saint Sava, which is a fair comparison to say that he is the Serbian people's right hand, you know, and I'm sure a majority of the Serbian people would agree with that. Of course, not those who are atheists, probably, and, you know, communists, whatever, remnants from the communism. But a majority of the traditional Serbian people will tell you that Saint Sava, yeah, it's a good assessment. He is the right hand of the Serbian people. The issue is if your right hand causes you to stumble and to sin, right? You need to cut it off and throw it away, as according to the Bible. This is why I say that I am more Serbian than any of my critics, because I am reading the Bible and I am looking at Saint Sava's theology objectively, regardless of his position in our society, and I have chopped off my own right hand in order to follow God. That's what being a Serbian person means. Okay? A Serbian person will sacrifice himself for right, truth, and justice, and for his religion, and for God. That's what we are. We don't comply with globalist agendas, globo homo. This is why there's so many sanctions on our country, and this is why we're poor. This is why we're not in the European Union. This is why we were bombed in the late 90s. Of course, nationalism and all this other stuff didn't help, right? Communism fell apart, and you cannot blame all those different regions at that time for not wanting to continue a communist socialist economy and government. But again, you know, every ethnicity was represented in the Yugoslavian army. It just so happened to be headquartered in Serbia, and at the same time, you know, national uprisings from the extremists in all of these regions did not help the situation at all. Okay, so we're not blameless. I'm not saying Serbian people are blameless in that conflict, but I'm definitely saying that there's more to the story than what the Western propaganda and media has portrayed. Obviously, I mean, that is just a side note to the issue here. The issue is that the Serbian people are following essentially a Roman Catholic faith, you know, thinking that they have separated from Catholicism, when in actuality they follow the Nicene Creed, which is idolatry, which doesn't say anything about Emperor Haile Selassie, and Emperor Haile Selassie actually never endorsed Trinitarianism, and he never instructed anyone to worship Christ, you know. So if God manifests on earth and we claim to be God-fearing Christian people, then we should recognize that and adapt our theology accordingly. We should you know, change our beliefs if that's what happens, and that is what happened. So if anyone is claiming that I am not a Serbian, I'm more Serbian than you. I am actually more Serbian than you'll ever be, because I have sacrificed my right hand in order to follow God more precisely. Okay? It doesn't get much more Serbian than that. So that's the irony, right? I have the Rastafarians telling me I'm not Rastafarian. I have the Serbians telling me I'm not Serbian, when in actuality, you know, I'm actually affirming their traditions and cultures and religions by preaching Emperor Haile Selassie I.
Boom Jack Records. Why do the youths them fuss and fight? Them cause too much war and crime. Well, it's got danger. Well, I want them say. All I see is war, crime and violence. Too many youths life gone down the toilet. In this world it's hard to avoid it. We have to press the last I to survive it. Yo, too much much war, crime and violence. Too many youths life gone down the toilet. In this world it's hard to avoid it. We have to press the last life is survive it. People listen, make a decision and you're gonna live cleaner. End up in a prison and you're gonna live righteously and not marvelous. Or will you be a gangster and steer down barrels? Barrels of the gun, do you promote the killing? Will you be a hero? Will you be a villain? Can you be a role model to the little chillin'? Cause innocent dead and too much blood spilling. Hey yo, well, sit back and realize that we need to change the vibe because too much negativity one got the youths them hypnotized. All I see is war, crime and violence. Too many youths life gone down the toilet. In this world it's hard to avoid it. We have to brace the last life to survive it. Yo, too much war, crime and violence. Too many youths life gone down the toilet. In this world it's hard to avoid it. We have to brace the last life to survive it. Well, it's too much hate and it's not enough love. And it's too much drugs and it's not enough hugs. We have to tell the youth them I go put down them guns. We tired see the blood them run. Yo, let's stop this war and let's stop this crime. Cause too much young youths I get caught in line from fire from bulletin. Mama she cry cause her son a lose him life. Yo, we tired of the funeral and tired of the burial. Tired of them killing one another for material. Can't them see that we're all human beings and be fed up of what we are seeing? All I see is war, crime and violence. Too many youths life gone down the toilet. In this world it's hard to avoid it. We have to brace the last life to survive it. Yo, too much war, crime and violence. Too many youths life gone down the toilet. In this world it's hard to avoid it. We have to brace the last life to survive it. People listen, make a decision and you're gonna live cleaner. End up in a prison and you're gonna live righteously and not marvelous. Or will you be a gangster and steer down barrels? Barrels of the gun, do you promote the killing? Will you be a hero? Will you be a villain? Can you be a role model to the little chillin'? Cause innocent dead and too much blood spilling. Hey yo, well, sit back and realize that we need to change the vibe because too much negativity one got the youths them hypnotized. All I see is war, crime and violence. Too many youths life gone down the toilet. In this world it's hard to avoid it. We have to brace the last life to survive it. Yo, too much war, crime and violence. Too many youths life gone down the toilet. In this world it's hard to avoid it. We have to brace the last life to survive it.